Hello, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Earth Day conversation. Today we're exploring how the natural world, through gardens, trees, birds, shared outdoor spaces, can deepen our spiritual lives and reconnect us to what is sacred. I'm Lisa Kloskin, I'm the editorial director for Broadleaf Books, and I'm your host for today's conversation. We're joined by spiritual teachers and thinkers whose work invites us to slow down, to pay attention, and rediscover our place within the living world. So let's meet today's panelists. First, I'll introduce LaRhonda Welch-Little, who's a mystic, healer, teacher, and pastor who draws from her rich cultural and spiritual heritage to nature to guide others to wellness and wholeness. She holds a Master's of Divinity from Candler School of Theology and a PhD in Spiritual Care and Pastoral Theology from Emory University. She's a minister within the United Methodist Church and lives outside of Atlanta. And her new book, Lessons from the Garden, African Spirituality, Health, and Holistic Practice, publishes in September. Welcome, LaRhonda. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Next, let's welcome Beth Norcross. Beth founded the Center for Spirituality in Nature and co-founded the Green Seminary Initiative, which infuses earth care into theological education. An adjunct professor at Wesley Theological Seminary, where she earned a Master of Theological Studies and a Doctor of Ministry. She has created and taught classes related to faith and ecology, and she lives in Virginia. She's also co-author of Discovering Spiritual Wisdom of Trees with another panelist. So welcome, Beth. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. What a privilege to be with you and then all of these other spiritual leaders. Such an honor. Thank you.
Thanks. And then joining us next is Leah Rampey, a writer and retreat leader who weaves ecology, spirituality, and stories to encourage deeper connections to the natural world. She is founder and leader of Church of the Wild Two Rivers and has led spiritual pilgrimages, retreats, and seminars. She holds a PhD in curriculum from Indiana University and lives in West Virginia. And along with Beth, she's the other co-author of Discovering the Spiritual Wisdom of Trees. Welcome, Leah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I am really happy to be here with this group and looking forward to the conversation.
Joining us next is Valerie Luna Searles. Valerie is the mycelial weaver and co-founder of the Wild Church Network and the founder and guide of Shenandoah Valley Church of the Wild. She serves as an eco-spiritual guide at the Center for Wild Spirituality and works with individuals and groups through Hagia Sophia, her eco-spiritual practice, offering intuitive guidance through earth-based and astrological wisdom. A mystic and interdisciplinary thinker, she draws on the frontiers of science and sacred wisdom to illuminate the evolutionary moment we're living. She is co-author of Field Guide to Church of the Wild. Welcome, Valerie.
So good to be here, Lisa. Thank you. And good to be with the rest of these guests today.
Wonderful. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by Reagan Sutterfield. Reagan is an Episcopal priest and an avid birder. His writing has appeared in outlets such as the Christian Century, Sojourners, the Oxford American, and Birding Magazine, among others. He is the author of several books, most recently Watch and Wonder, Birding as a Spiritual Practice, which published in March. And he lives in Arkansas. Welcome, Reagan. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Lisa, and everyone here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you each for being here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. Spent time with each of your books and appreciate what you're bringing for readers and for audiences about connecting with nature. Certainly there's a variety of topics you're all covering, but a thread that I think is shared between each of them is this invitation to slow down and truly notice the world around us, this idea of attention. It feels really meaningful in a time when there's so many devices, so many pieces of news, so many forces that are sort of conspiring to take our attention, vying for our attention. So maybe let's start there. A question for all of you. Why do you think attention is such a powerful spiritual practice right now? And maybe you could share with us a way that you're trying to pay more attention to the natural world in this time.
I'll be brave and jump in here, but the first thing that comes to mind in this world where so little is beyond our control and competes for our attention and response. Paying attention is a reminder that we actually have agency. And it's a reminder that we don't have to participate in everything that's going on around us. Agency. We have control over and choice over what we do and what we don't do. And that's vitally important. In my room, I'm looking at a plant across the way, and that's one way in which I get to pay attention. I have life around me that I can connect with and care for. And in caring for a plant, I'm actually caring for myself. Agency, I think, is fundamental for me.
I think that's really well said. And I would add that at the same time, it's also a way that we can decenter ourselves as human and to understand that we don't have to be, and in fact are not, the center and the most important beings of the universe, that we are one among many, that we are part of this amazing living network, this whole relationship, this web of beings. And when we pay attention, we can center down into that incredibly beautiful web of life and remember there's more than just me.
I would add, and I appreciate both of those comments, that because of all the noise, so much noise, as you said, Lisa, that I think there's a yearning for depth, because all that noise keeps us up here, keeps us away from the sacred, keeps us away from spirit, keeps us away from some of our demons even. And so what focus does is it allows us to go in, and it allows us to go deep. And for me, a recent practice that I'm trying to rediscover is nature journaling. There's a whole wonderful effort out there to do nature journaling, and I'm not much of an artist, but I find that just drawing a stick figure of a tree or a butterfly or Reagan, a bird, if I can find one, it's still enough for me, encourages me to pay attention, to look at the wings and how they're formed and the feathers and the veins and so forth. So that's one that I'm trying to become reacquainted with these days.
Beautiful. I love that idea of drawing, because drawing can be such a wonderful way to pay attention. And I was thinking when you were speaking, Leah, about this decentering at the same time that it's also a centering down, that paying attention to the natural world helps us with, but it also is a way that I think retrains our desires. I think it was Mary Oliver who said, attention is the beginning of devotion. And devotion is how we learn to love and love the world around us. And so by deeply paying attention to this world that is outside of us, and particularly those beautiful creatures that draw our eye and gain our attention, but then we start to notice that all of the other creatures that are around them and connected to them. And in that way, our desires and hopes for the world get retrained away from just our very human-centric perspective.
It's a beautiful reflections, and what you shared, LaRonda, about the simplicity of caring for a plant, and that caring for the plant is caring for yourself, just also brings up, it seems like it's also a way to care about the collective. And just this idea that we all live in right now is the reality of our interconnection. And since we live in this time of really unprecedented attention economy, all the systems that we live in are engineered to fragment and our attention and to capture and so it's this extractive kind of logic that is alive right now in kind of how we are in the social sphere, and it impacts us psychologically. And so the simple act of paying attention, it's not just cognitive, it is also spiritual. And just the invitation to listen more deeply and to be aware in this moment, to what is before us, this tree, this leaf, this stone, this river, and to enter into some kind of at least open to relationship with that is contrary to those algorithms. And so in a way, it feels like living outside of that, attention economy is really also an act of resistance, and an act, even a revolutionary act, even in the smallness of care that we give and offer to just the plants, the beings, the birds, everything that is around us, and even in our own home and with each other.
Mm. Mm. Well, that's beautiful. And I appreciate the way this time that we can spend for these, less than an hour probably we'll have together, but that this can be a moment to pause and pay attention and listen to one another as well. So I'm grateful for you all just being willing to open the conversation and to piggyback off of one another's ideas. I'm hearing a bit of a thread in your responses to this idea, both of caring for ourselves, but also caring for others. And I think, we've got books about trees here, spending time in the garden, bird watching. These are topics that are trending. They might have the sort of hashtag self-care attached to them sometimes, but I think there's a deeper level of care and healing that happens when we engage in nature this way. I wonder if you all might be willing to reflect on the connection you see between the way we relate to the natural world and the kind of healing that we might be able to find.
Yeah, we come from the earth, and to the earth we will return. And so when we take time to pay attention, memory comes into play. So I remember being with my grandfather in his garden, sitting in front of his impatiens. And I used to pluck the seeds from the impatiens before they bloomed. And as I reflect on this time decades ago, I was a small child. I remember that was probably my first lesson in spiritual care because of how he saw me messing up his garden in my own, world of discovery. He didn't yell. He didn't chastise me, but he got down on his knees with curiosity. And we had a conversation that I will never forget. I was probably about 5 or 6 years old. And just the way that my grandfather, who was an itinerant preacher, but the way he engaged me in the garden really has given me that memory, gives me a sense of wholeness and what God cares about and how we are connected to the earth.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
I love that statement that you made, LaRhonda, about that we come from the earth, and so care for the earth is care for ourselves. It's not disconnected, and that's so often the way that we, even just the terms that we use, like the environment, and they are terms that make that something that's out there, and we're here. But when we really begin to pay attention to all of the connections that are present there in the wideness of creation, then we begin to understand ourselves as a part of it. And so self-care and care for the earth are not different things. And and so then that changes what hospitality looks like. It changes what our own bodies are, become hospitable or inhospitable to other creatures. We have all kinds of microorganisms that live in us and around us, and I think that those paying attention to those realities help connect us and understand care in this much broader sense, where it's no longer self-care or care for the other, but it's just care as a reality that we're participating in.
Yeah, and that the just this thread that you've started to weave, especially right now, if we, just opening our social media or our papers or whatever, is immediately, I notice daily just this overwhelming sense of too much information, all that's going on in the world. And also knowing a lot of people who are struggling with nervous system disorders, and feeling that in myself, just by becoming more aware of my body and how I respond to all of the news. And because of that interconnection that you're naming, that is where to go, just to, even if it's going out for just a few moments, or even bringing into awareness the plant in front of us or outside of my window, can bring me into a state of deeper coherence, because we lose that regulation, and we wind up, I wind up just spinning out in my head, and my emotions follow, and then my body gets tight, and really it's this deeper relationship that's calling, especially at this time of so much change, as really the place, the relationship to be investing in, and our time and our energy and our awareness, so that we can co-regulate with the earth, the earth's presence that has survived and thrived for billions of years in the most conditions, most difficult conditions that we can even imagine from our time span. So kind of linking up with and knowing that we are part of something so much larger and more ancient and more wise, allows me to regulate myself in these kind of unprecedented times.
I love the image of co-regulating with the earth that's around us. And it makes me think, Beth and Leah, maybe if we can turn to the specifics of your book, Discovering the Spiritual Wisdom of Trees, there's a beautiful invitation in your book that we could connect with trees like a friend, sort of find that tree that could be our soul friend. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about your invitation to be in relationship with trees, not just as things that surround us, but as beings that we can be in relationship with. Talk about that a little bit, and maybe the kind of the spiritual connections that could bring for our lives. I'll go to you first, Beth, and then Leah, jump in too if you'd like.
Well, I appreciate that invitation, Lisa. I should say I'm out here in the country among the trees, and so the internet's a little spotty. So I'll do my best to get started, and Leah's more than capable.
Great.
When we wrote the book, we want to focus on one element of our ecological system so that we could concentrate, so we could focus. And what we found as we dug farther into the science and the spirituality is just how important trees are for every living thing. Humans, of course, the fungus, the birds, really every living thing so dependent on trees. And so we enjoyed taking the science and seeing what came out of the science spiritually for us. And one of the things that we talk about in the book, and Leah can piggyback on this, is the importance, for example, of light, both light and darkness, and in between. For trees, so much of what happens, of course, they're yearning to go to the light, aren't we all?
Whoops.
We lost Beth. Maybe you can pick it up,
yeah,
Leah. We'll see.
I certainly will. Yeah. So, one of the things that we can do is to invite trees to be our teachers. And one of the lessons of trees is it's all connected. Trees know what it's like to be individual trees and simultaneously forest. And forest is not a simple collection of trees. Forest is relationship. It's a relationship, and it's an intelligent and caring relationship. And so while we are the beneficiaries of a multitude of gifts, many of which support self-healing, if we can say that, self-healing, and yet to carry that to too far makes it sound as if we are distinct from, that we are separate from. And it's the relationship we long for. It's the relationship itself that heals us. We have frayed that relationship. We cannot disconnect. There is no way that we are not drinking the water that is within us from the rivers and the streams around us. Those beings, plants, are within and constructing our cells. There is no separation. And yet so much of our society tells us that. And I think that's what's breaking our hearts. It's making us sad. Somewhere deep within, we know that all thriving is mutual, as Robin Wall Kimmerer has said so beautifully. All thriving is mutual. So there is no well-being for us, as Reagan and Valerie and LaRonda have said. There's no well-being for us if there's not well-being for all. And that's the entire living earth. The entire living earth has to be well for all of us to be well. So Beth, you want to go back to anything about trees, or maybe Lisa needs to take it back at this point?
I'm going to give it to Lisa, and I'm afraid that this might be disruptive. So if I continue to have problems with my internet, I'm just going to sign off and leave our trees in Leah's capable hands.
Well, thanks for being here. We'll keep you on as long as we can, Beth, and appreciate your insights. Yeah. And we're all in this together, right? That's part of the message that we're all talking about. So Valerie, maybe I'd like to turn to you. Your work within Wild Church Networks is really about helping communities gather together outdoors. And I wonder, we're talking about this relationship that we might have with the natural world. How does finding community together outside change our sense of belonging to the earth? Could you talk a little bit about your experiences with the Wild Church Network and what you've learned there?
Yeah, and the book that you've mentioned, this field guide that I wrote together with my sister Victoria, who was unable to be here today, but it really documents the 30 different voices from Church of the Wild. So Wild Church leaders who are answering and speaking to all of what we call the elements of a wild church, because Wild Church really is that, in that it is not orchestrated. There's not a way of 1, 2, 3 how to do Wild Church. It is experiential and embodied and dependent on each leader really availing themselves to learning to listen. And part of the whole process of even starting a wild church is, what does the land say? And what does your soul say first? What is your heart? What does the land say? And to really go out. We encourage in our Wild Church Leadership course to go out to the land where you either have really felt drawn, or where you would like to, where you have a vision of maybe gathering with a community of others, and really just sitting to listen and feel, receive, and to give gratitude to that space. And also to listen to your community, to your people. And so it's those 3 kind of ways of listening that help just kind of initiate a journey, into what is calling each particular person. And at the core, really, of that we have noticed over years is the primacy of the invitation to just be present. And if you go to 50 different wild church gatherings, you're going to have 50 very different experiences. And you will also encounter many of the same invitations. One is how you open, and some kind of invitation into silence and stillness and just slow down. You can almost feel like this sigh of a whole community of people without them even realizing it, just co-regulating their systems with the earth that we're sitting on. And then to invite a time to open to our five senses. What are you hearing right now? What do you smell? What do you see? What do you feel? Touch the ground. And then to also close your eyes and to feel within to that sacred center that is always in communication with the world around us, this living earth and the living invisible world that connects us together. Mm. And so it's developing, I think, a dimension of knowing that is within all of us. It just needs to be noticed again and developed. And it's developed by the continuity of practice. And to have a community of other people to gather with to practice that is like even more of a gift. Sometimes it's hard to, for one person to establish a routine or a new habit or a different way of living in the world. And when we have other people who are also doing this with us, it can really help us, develop those qualities. And also one more thing is like the center of every gathering, it feels like the heart is an invitation to go out on a wander or a saunter, different from a walk, that we're not out to get from point A to point B. We are going out to let our body feel drawn by the body of the earth to a particular more than human other, and to sit with that and just listen. At first you might feel really stupid if you've never done this before, like, what am I even doing? But to have that normalized, to come back after 30 minutes by yourself, and just picking up what you notice and not dismissing anything, and coming back and sharing that with others can be so affirming for people coming into this feeling drawn, but also just unsure. So it's a way to deepen into this practice of the relational quality of our, being earthlings.
That's beautiful. I love the idea of a saunter. Let's all go do that after we're done with this call today. Well, you also use the word continuity, Valerie, but I'm also thinking of the sort of the connections that we make with nature that span generations as well, which makes me think of your book, LaRonda, and the stories that you tell. You've told one already of your grandfather. There's some beautiful stories of your grandmother in the book as well. Writing about the connection between nature, both as something we experience with our sight and our smell and our hearing, but something we can take into our bodies as well, the bounties from the garden. Yeah. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about those early experiences in the garden with your grandmother or in the kitchen with your grandmother, and how did those experiences shape your understanding of wholeness and healing in our connection to the earth?
Thank you for that question. One memory that comes up for me, my grandmother, along the boundary of the garden were her daylilies. And I remember the house is around the corner from a Confederate cemetery. So many people from the neighborhood and the broader community would drive past the house and see the garden. You couldn't miss it. It was a little bitty house surrounded by a large garden. But I remember one day a woman came and knocked on my grandmother's door and to compliment my grandmother on her lilies. And the woman was not African American. and the reality of the time was there was this deep tension, as there is today, between my grandmother's house, this place of safety, this garden around the corner from this Confederate cemetery, in which there were still demonstrations going on.
Mm.
But my grandmother graciously, engaged with this woman and then went out to the garden and offered some of her lilies. She dug them up
Mm.
and shared them. And so there's this opportunity for connectedness all the time. And I think it was you, Valerie, that mentioned there's a resistance in how we choose to engage with one another. We are aware of these realities, but we don't have to be directed by the realities. We can go beyond the reality and show that, first of all, this earth does not belong to any one person or any one group. We're all connected through this. So that's one memory that stands out to me for this time.
Mm.
But also, I always, I often think to myself, are we the last generation that learned how to shell peas on the porch? I spent a lot of time on the porch with my grandmother shelling peas. And what a gift that was, and those beautiful conversations that we had. I remember her asking me, LaRonda, or Rhonda, she called me Rhonda. Rhonda, do you ever just sit still and be quiet?
Mm.
She taught me how to sit still and meditate. So thank you for that question.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful stories and beautiful images. Yeah, thank you. Reagan, I wonder if we could turn to you now for maybe a different kind of stillness as you're in nature, sort of waiting for a bird to arrive. You describe bird watching as a practice that forms virtues like attention and patience, but also love. And I wondered if you could share a moment when watching birds shifted not just what you saw, but how you saw, and just share more about kind of how you see bird watching revealing something true about the sacredness of our life.
Thank you for that question, Lisa. So, bird watchers like to talk about a spark bird, something that, we all see birds,
Mm.
but when you see your spark bird, it's that bird that opens you up to this whole world that is beyond just the little backyard birds, the cardinals or the blue jays or things that everyone knows. But you recognize that there's so much more out there. There are an estimated, um, you know, 10 billion, species of birds out in the world. So, or I mean, sorry, 10,000 birds species out in the world, and billions of individual birds. But but out of those 10,000 species, we can see in my state of Arkansas easily someone who goes out and looks could find 300 different species, and so there's this great diversity and abundance all around us, but we just miss it when we're not paying attention to it, and we don't know how to pay attention or tune into that reality. And so one of the gifts of bird watching is to recognize the profound diversity of life that's all around us and very, very close at hand. And so my entrance into really understanding this came when I was pretty young. I was starting out bird watching. I started around when I was 12 years old, and I was welcomed into our local Audubon Society, began going out on field trips, and we went on a field trip to a local national wildlife refuge in January. And I was in a group that we were driving back from the field trip, and someone saw a bird fly across the road and said, I think that was a scissor-tailed flycatcher. and a scissor-tailed flycatcher is a common bird here in the summer, but not very common in the winter. And so, of course, we pulled over and jumped out with our binoculars, and it turned out to be a fork-tailed flycatcher, which is a bird that lives in Central America, and somehow it had ended up in Arkansas. And it was this incredibly rare bird, first time it had ever been seen in Arkansas. And for a kid getting into birding, being part of finding something this rare was really exciting. But that experience, as I've reflected on it in the years since, showed me that there are rare, wonderful things happening all around us all the time. But I had just happened to learn how to identify this one bird. And so I was able to receive that moment and recognize it for the rare wonder that it was. But if it had been a beetle from Central America, I would have missed it, because I don't know my beetles very well. I'm fairly ignorant of plants as well. And I'm trying to learn other aspects, but it's both an invitation to learn more about the world, to see all of these wonders, but also to recognize our profound ignorance, that we can't possibly grasp all of the incredible things that are happening around us all the time. And so we just have to kind of step back and be in awe of this reality, and not to suppose that we do understand it totally, that we can just clamp it down in our knowledge, because it will always exceed us. And that, I think, is a really important thing to hold on to in this age, when we're in the information age, and with increasing computing power and all of this stuff that helps us feel sometimes like we know so much. But when we have these moments when we recognize how little we know, and how much abundance and diversity and wildness there is around us that we can wonder at, then we are invited into this whole different posture and way of seeing. And that's one of the gifts that I continue to carry with me from every time I go out birding.
That's beautiful. I love the way you described the particularities of finding that one bird as a moment of awe that can sort of crack open something bigger. I wonder if I could put some of the rest of you on the spot to maybe share. Have you had a moment of awe, of discovery, something that surprised you and created that sort of moment for you as you've been outside recently or in your past, a childhood story? Are there moments of awe to share?
Well, I guess it might go without saying that trees capture my attention maybe more than other living beings, although I'm enamored of the amazing spring ephemerals that we're seeing now. They are just so stunning and so delicate and beautiful, and so quickly passing. So I think there's wonder in the tiny. But I will also say that the sequoias and the redwoods in California, the majesty of those trees just totally captured my heart, and I can bring them to mind so clearly, even though it's been several years since I have been there. And reading about them even cracks me open, both with grief and with joy.
Beautiful.
Reagan, I am fascinated by your work on birds. I love birds. I had a bird land on my head one day while walking around campus. So I have this, I don't even know what kind of connection it is, but I love birds. But outside of my window where I write, there's a bird feeder. And one day I was just sitting here thinking, and I saw two mockingbirds come up, and they were playing. And it was like they were playing a game of Uncle. One bird landed on top of the other and held their wings down. And after a couple of seconds, let them up. It was such an awe. I was awestruck that these two beings were playing on the ground at eye level where I could witness it. It was lovely. And then I got up from the desk because I was reminded that I too need to play. Sometimes I can't be sitting here at work for hours on end without realizing that, yeah, like birds, I get to play too.
Beautiful.
I love that, LaRonda.
That is beautiful. What a great reminder. I'm moved by just right now the emergence of spring feels like we witness a miracle. It feels like a miracle. Just walking into my backyard every day, it changes. It's like, where did that color of green come from?
Mhm.
How did that little fern head, how does that spiral become, straight? And we have these, I'm not good with names, but I think they're common violets. They're purple and white. And every spring they encircle all of the trees in our yard, and they're nowhere else. But they form this it's like this relationship that they have with the tree. And just to see that, it's just stunning. It kind of takes my breath away. And where there might be grass later in the year is just filled with all of these tiny little flowers that decide, because of the relationship of the sun and the time of year and everything else, to come up for maybe 2 weeks and just carpet the backyard with stunning beauty.
Mhm.
And this was also in my yard. I've had a few encounters with wildlife, and this was a number of years ago, and my daughter and I were talking and looked out the window, and we saw a fox. And this is not a place to have that kind of wildlife walk into our backyard. So we went out there, and we're just witnessing this fox in the yard. It was it had snowed recently. It's December, and it didn't go anywhere. So we just kind of even sat down, and this fox came straight up to us. And so it's like one thing led to the other. I mean, it was actually sniffing our clothes and my hand. And it wasn't until after that, as we're walking back in, and I kind of felt that sense of awe dissipate a little. I'm like, oh my gosh, we were just in contact with a wild fox. And we don't know what's wrong with this fox. Why is he walking around the neighborhood? He didn't look quite right, but he was, friendly, just kind of dazed or confused. And anyway, I did some research calling different wildlife places, and they kept sending me to this one fox expert in Virginia. And she said, if you don't go get a rabies shot at the emergency room right now, I'm going to come drive you. I'm like, oh, okay, right. That part of the wild. So my daughter and I had to have the full spectrum of rabies shots on Christmas Day and on New Year's Day. So it's like this, carrying both of these, just this sense of awe and close relationship, and just wanting that kind of relationship with the wild. And also, oh, it is actually wild. And something not good can actually come of that too. So there's like a little bit more healthy respect of those kind of boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, healthy respect. I think we'd all do better if we had some more healthy respect for the natural world around us, right? Be in relationship with, but an honoring, respectful relationship. Well, thank you for letting me put you on the spot for stories of awe. I loved hearing those. I'm smiling ear to ear, imagining you in these spaces and with these animals and plants. I wish we could talk a lot longer about your books and about the connection to the natural world. but I'm attentive to our time, and I want to have a chance for maybe one final question that I could throw out to each of you, which would be if you could commend to the folks who are watching this webinar today one specific practice, a tangible practice that they could do to reconnect with the natural world in the coming days and the coming weeks. What would you recommend to them? Maybe I'll start with you, Reagan, and then we can bop around to everyone.
Sure. Well, thanks, Lisa. Well, I mean, being spring and the season when we're celebrating Earth Day, and this, our connections to the earth, but also our responsibility for care that we started our conversation with, I think being having a practice of hospitality in your own space for wild creatures. And the best way to begin that is to garden specifically for the wild. So there are all kinds of plant and insect relationships that take place with our native species in our various places. And those then support other species, like, so the caterpillars that come and eat the oak leaves then feed the birds. And there's some wonderful work that's been done by an entomologist named Douglas Tallamy that I recommend his work to everyone. But I think starting to pay attention to what plants you have in your yard and the ones that will support a diverse ecology. And this being gardening season, you can find out some of the, start with milkweed or echinacea, purple coneflower, things like that. Those are pretty widespread in North America. And those support a lot of different species, but you can go and have a whole native plant yard that will feed all kinds of wildlife. And that's a practice that is both very tangible and perfect season to begin it, but also will bring a lot of good to the natural world.
I love it. Thanks for that invitation, Reagan. What do you think, Leah?
Yeah, I'll jump on that because here for Doug Tallamy and Homegrown National Parks, and we're real advocates here for native plants to support all the critters in our to replace lawns. I had a different practice in mind. I spent a number of years leading pilgrimages to a variety of holy places in the world. When Beth and I started collaborating, when she had founded the Center for Spirituality and Nature, we started offering pilgrimages to your own backyard. And so that's my suggestion for people who are listening. And the way I would suggest you might begin is to get a piece of string or yarn, something. And, this doesn't have to be precise, maybe like 6 feet of string. And take it outside and drop it in a circle somewhere. It could be around a bush or just on the ground, and get yourself comfortable around it on a little stool or a chair, or lie on the ground. And don't get too hung up on what area you choose. Any place will be fine. And then, as Valerie mentioned a while ago, tune your senses. We sometimes talk about that as tuning your 5-stringed harp. That's a Celtic practice of each of those 5 senses. Tune them. And then drop into silence, mind and heart, open, present, connected. You'll have to keep coming back to that because our minds will intercede and we will start thinking about things, not the least of which might be, well, this is really crazy and nothing's going to happen here. And you might even think, I have chosen the most desolate piece of life that I could possibly choose, and there's nothing going on here. Sit for a half hour. Keep coming back to being open and present, and allow yourself to be connected with that space. And I will guarantee you, within that period of time, you will see life beyond what you could imagine in wherever you drop that string. It's all alive. It's all connected. It's sacred, and it's all around us. And then you might want to journal about that or do some sketches. But be sure you express your gratitude. Offer that gratitude. And then in reciprocity, ask, what might I do for that small space? Perhaps it's a deep bow of gratitude. Maybe it's a drink of water. Maybe it's a vow to protect it. Perhaps it's a commitment to return. But just remember that that's the beginning of building relationship, is to find a place, get to know it, be grateful for it, return time and again, and then offer from our own deep gifts what is ours to give to that particular place.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
How about you, Valerie? What's a tangible practice you might recommend?
And yeah, just to maybe even bounce off of yours, Leah, because that's similar to what I was going to offer, is to the most simple practice that you can, even if it's 5 minutes of finding a spot and go to the same spot every day. But since you've spoken to that so beautifully, Leah, another one might be a threshold practice. When we send people out at a wild church gathering to wander, one of the first things is to look for a threshold of some kind. It can be stepping over a stick, it could be a branch that hangs over, or you just stop and then you take the next step. And the reason for that is to recognize kind of the movement into more sacred time, even though everything's sacred, but kind of stepping into beyond just your ordinary everyday mind and to step into slower time. And as a daily practice of thresholds is to just imagine your door as a threshold. So every time you open the door, whether it's to go inside or outside or into another room, especially going outside, is to pause for 3 seconds and notice. Take 3 breaths. Notice the sunlight. What does the air feel like on your skin? What sound do you hear? What's the first thing you see? And just offering ourselves, even just for those short amount of times, helps rewire something in us that has to do with paying attention to how we are met and when we step over something, to notice and be more aware of the beauty that surrounds us or the devastation that surrounds us, but to be present with the more than human world in our daily experience of just walking outside a door.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leah and Valerie, I tell you, y'all really reached inside my being and pulled out what I was thinking. But the other thing that came to me in terms of something that's tangible, and I'll go back to the memory with my grandmother. One of the easiest things to grow is peas. So what I would offer as an act of dreaming, a tangible act of dreaming, is to get some soil and whatever container you have lying around your house. You don't have to go out and buy, anything fancy, and get a pack of peas and plant them and watch them grow. And as the plant is growing, commune with the plant, watch it, allow the plant to ask you questions as you ask the plant questions. And then as it begins to sprout and grow some more, and it begins to bear peas, then sit and shell those peas and share them with others. Share them with others.
Thank you so much. I'm feeling inspired to go out and do some of these practices in the coming weeks. And I want to thank you all for being here and being part of this conversation. Thank you to our panelists, but also thank you to all of you who are watching our webinar. I hope you're feeling inspired as well. And that we kind of leave feeling a renewed sense of connection to the earth and to each other and to the sacredness. Yeah. Appreciate you all being here so much. Thanks for joining us. Happy Earth Day, everyone.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. Gratitude to each one of you.
Yeah.
And you as well.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
And for those listening, if you've registered for today's webinar, you will receive links to each of our panelists' books to help you in your journey and more information from Broadleaf Books to come. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Enjoy your day.